A storm carrying what is called an atmospheric river is striking California. No one was prepared for this. While millions went about their daily routines, something changed with abrupt force across the United States. In mere instants, roads turned into deadly traps. The cold advanced without warning. Snow blanketed entire cities, and the most closely watched nation on the planet stood completely vulnerable. We are not speaking of an ordinary winter. We are witnessing an extreme event, one outside every pattern, one beyond control, exactly as many had warned would occur. When the power failed and silence claimed the streets, a single question began echoing around the world. Why now? Because ancient prophecies speak of a time when human security would fail, when nature would rise in unexpected ways, and when fear would once more knock at the doors of nations. In this presentation, you will see precisely what unfolded, why this event defies the ordinary, and why millions now believe we are witnessing the fulfillment of a sign that cannot be ignored. Stay with us, because understanding this alters the way we view what is coming. Along the East Coast, masses of frigid air consolidated in anomalous fashion, threatening to paralyze entire cities beneath sheets of ice and snow. Meanwhile, in Southern California, a sudden plunge in temperature left the wildlife utterly motionless, as though life itself had chosen to freeze in time. And that was not all. Torrents of rain unleashed sudden floods in zones that had never before experienced such violent precipitation in the depths of winter. They collapsed drainage systems and left communities utterly isolated. Yet what proved most disturbing was unfolding in Tennessee. Without a single drop of rain falling, muddy water began surging from the depths, piercing through pavement and forcing mass evacuations. Authorities offered no clear explanations. Residents themselves could not comprehend what was occurring. What renders all of this different is that none of these events is unfolding in isolation. They are developing simultaneously, as though responding to a single invisible force. The question is no longer simply what is happening. It is what may be awakening beneath our feet. Remain alert, because this has only just begun. At the start of 2026, climatology experts began tracking with mounting concern a winter formation stretching from the Appalachian Mountains to the Interstate 95 corridor. This band encompasses some of the most densely populated metropolises in the country, places where even moderate climatic variations can alter the lives of millions within hours. At first, everything appeared to follow normal seasonal patterns. Yet, as forecasts updated, it became clear this was no ordinary storm. What the nation faced was not a system that would pass and dissipate like any other. It formed part of a persistent pattern known as a prolonged La Nina, a phenomenon that keeps cold air trapped for weeks, even months. The snow and ice refused to vanish as expected. Instead of melting between events, they lingered and accumulated. Each new wave of cold arrived before communities could recover from the last. Essential systems began showing signs of collapse. Transportation routes grew unpredictable. Airports closed and reopened in chaotic cycles. Electrical grids operated under constant strain. Supply chains already weakened confronted interruption after interruption without respite. The problem was no longer the severity of any single storm. It was the total absence of rest between one and the next. Winter refused to yield, and that persistence was beginning to exhaust not only resources, but the patience and hope of those facing this endless cold. What proves particularly unsettling is the rupture of familiar patterns. Traditionally, winter follows a clear cycle. Onset, peak, decline. This time, the end simply refused to arrive. The cold persisted, and people began to wonder when normal conditions would return. In the scriptures, snow and ice are never described as random phenomena. They appear as forces unleashed with deliberate intent. Yet, not every time they are unleashed do they signal immediate judgment. Sometimes they serve as warnings crafted to capture attention before something far worse is released. That is why the deepest concern is not how cold it may become. It is what it implies that winter no longer follows the familiar cycles. When seasons turn erratic, when systems collapse, and when periods of recovery vanish, an inevitable question arises. What happens when what once passed in silence now refuses to depart? The unease does not stem merely from the weather. It arises from the sensation that something fundamental is changing, that the stability we once took for granted is fading slowly, yet inexorably. While the patterns of cold stagnated on a national scale, their influence extended silently beyond the storm zones, reaching regions that never expected to feel their effects. During the sudden temperature drop, residents in multiple areas noticed something entirely out of the ordinary. Wild animals that normally moved with freedom stood motionless. Salamanders clung to rocks without stirring. Small reptiles remained still as statues. Even larger creatures, deer and elk, were observed standing alert yet unmoving, as though they no longer knew how to respond. There was no panic, no visible injuries, no attempt to flee. Life did not collapse. It simply halted. Biologists explained that sudden exposure to extremely low temperatures can slow metabolism, especially in species sensitive to cold. The body enters a protective state, conserving energy until conditions stabilize once more. Scientifically, the explanation held. Yet for those who witnessed it, the experience was different. What proved most striking was the silence. Areas that normally overflowed with noise grew disturbingly quiet. Insects vanished. Birds ceased their songs. Even the wind seemed to halt. The surroundings appeared frozen not only by temperature. The Bible describes frequently how nature reacts before humanity comprehends what is unfolding. It speaks of a world that groans under pressure, signaling imbalance long before collapse. This moment reflects that idea. Not chaos, but restraint. When animals neither flee nor resist, but simply stop, it indicates they have crossed a certain threshold. And when life halts without resistance, it poses a difficult question. If even the most resilient organisms are reaching their limits, what limits are the systems we depend upon reaching? While some areas remained in an unsettling calm, others confronted the complete opposite. Water began to flow suddenly into places that should never flood. As winter climate systems continued intensifying, another storm system crossed Texas, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes region, bringing torrential rains, strong winds, and dangerous flash floods. These systems developed with astonishing speed, striking areas already under considerable strain from seasonal climatic anomalies. In Chicago, January of 2026 recorded record winter precipitation that triggered flooding in urban zones not designed to handle such volumes of water. Roads that normally stay dry in winter became submerged rapidly. Tunnels flooded. Traffic ground to a halt as water levels rose faster than emergency systems could respond. Flash floods are particularly dangerous because they strike without warning. Unlike prolonged flooding, sudden ones give communities only minutes to react. Residents described how the situation changed abruptly. Roads became impassable before warnings reached the public. What began as heavy rain escalated quickly into a serious safety hazard. What made this event especially notable was not only the amount of rain, but the timing. Winter floods are rare, especially in northern cities where infrastructure is built to manage snow and ice, not torrential water. Yet this flooding occurred simultaneously, with slippery roads and blizzards in surrounding areas. This overlap placed additional strain on drainage networks, transportation grids, and emergency services. Systems designed to operate separately were forced to function simultaneously, exposing weaknesses often hidden. In the Bible, floods are not described merely as rain falling from the sky. They are also portrayed as water overflowing from hidden places, rising unexpectedly, and altering the shape of the earth. Whether interpreted symbolically or literally, the idea remains consistent. When boundaries crumble, water exposes vulnerabilities long overlooked. The deepest concern is not simply that flooding occurs, but that it happens in places unprepared. When water levels rise beyond normal limits, it signals a shift that challenges assumptions about stability, security, and things no longer taken for granted. While water overwhelmed streets at the surface, something far more disturbing began unfolding underground in Tennessee. Residents were caught off guard by a phenomenon few had ever witnessed. Without rainstorms or nearby flooding, muddy water suddenly forced its way upward through pavement. Roads buckled. Cracks spread across asphalt. Thick, foul-smelling water erupted from beneath streets that had seemed stable only hours earlier. The eruption arrived without warning. There were no heavy clouds above, nor swollen rivers nearby. Instead, the ground itself became the source. Floors inside homes shifted. Foundations showed signs of stress. In several areas, residents were evacuated as conditions worsened while officials worked to assess the damage. Authorities attributed the event to subterranean pressure combined with aging infrastructure. According to initial explanations, saturated soil layers and weakened underground systems created conditions that allowed water and mud to push upward. On paper, the reasoning appeared logical. Yet many questioned why this release occurred now and with such force without the usual external triggers. What most unsettled residents was the direction of the movement. Normally, floods arrive from above or from overflowing waterways. This time, it came from below. The familiar sensation of the ground as something solid and reliable was suddenly challenged. Streets once felt safe could no longer be trusted. Incidents like this are rare, but not insignificant. When pressure builds underground, it often goes unnoticed until a breaking point is reached. By the time the surface responds, conditions beneath have already been changing for some time. In the Bible, moments when the earth opens are described as times of exposure, times when what has remained hidden can no longer stay buried. Whether read symbolically or literally, the message is clear. Instability beneath the surface eventually reveals itself. The deepest concern is not only the damage caused, but what it represents. When the ground begins to push back, it raises an unsettling question. Why now? And if the invisible pressures are already strong enough to pierce through pavement, how much more tension is accumulating where no one is looking? Still, while the ground showed signs of strain below, an equally disturbing change appeared above. One that could not be attributed to any familiar cause. Along the Maine coast, residents began to notice a surprising change in the sky during the final hours of night and the first of morning. Instead of the usual darkness or the gradual tones of dawn, the horizon glowed with a deep, uniform orange. The color was not fleeting. It held steady, spreading across the sky in a manner that felt deliberate rather than accidental. What made the sight especially unsettling was the absence of an obvious explanation. There were no nearby forest fires burning, no smoke drifting from other regions, no storms, no heavy cloud cover, no reports of atmospheric disturbances that typically cause unusual lighting conditions. Meteorological data offered no clear answer. Observers described the light as tranquil yet unnatural. It did not flicker or pulse. It did not move with clouds nor fade quickly, as optical effects usually do. Instead, it persisted silent, constant, and difficult to ignore. For many, the stillness of the light proved more unsettling than if it had appeared briefly and vanished. Scientists often point to rare atmospheric reflections, interactions of light pollution, or distant weather systems when unusual colors appear in the sky. While these explanations may account for some cases, They do not always align with the duration or uniformity reported by witnesses in this instance, resulted in a growing sense of uncertainty rather than tranquility. In the scriptures, signs in the heavens are never described as acts meant to provoke panic. They appear instead as signals crafted to awaken awareness, to capture attention. When patterns begin to shift, the change of color in the sky presents itself not as destruction, but as communication. What unsettles people most is not the color itself, but the absence of any cause. When the sky behaves in unfamiliar ways, it interrupts the assumption that everything above us follows predictable rules. When the horizon glows without warning or explanation, attention ceases to be optional. It becomes a moment that demands to be noticed not out of fear, but because ignoring it feels increasingly impossible. While the sky displayed unfamiliar colors above, an even more troubling sight appeared where boundaries normally remain absolute. Off the coast of Washington, witnesses reported an unusual and brief phenomenon: flames that seemed to move across the surface of the ocean. The light proved visible from shore, stable enough to be clearly observed, yet ephemeral enough to leave far more questions than answers. There were no reports of oil spills, no ship collisions, no visible source of fuel floating upon the water. The flames did not spread. They did not roar or intensify. Instead, they appeared, they held their form for a moment, and then vanished as silently as they had arrived. The surface of the ocean returned to normal, leaving only uncertainty. Fire and water stand as natural opposites. One consumes, the other extinguishes. Their separation forms one of the most basic assumptions of the natural world. When that boundary appears to soften even briefly, it unsettles observers not because of damage, but because of what it suggests. Initial explanations centered on possible gas releases, rare chemical reactions, or temporary surface ignition. While such theories may account for isolated cases, they do not always explain the timing or the controlled nature of what witnesses described. The lack of visible aftermath only deepened the confusion. Nothing burned, nothing remained. What rendered the moment disturbing was not chaos, but restraint. The fire did not behave violently. It did not escalate. It simply existed where it should not, and then withdrew. In biblical imagery, fire appearing in unexpected places often associates itself not with immediate destruction, but with warning and a testing of limits. It represents a loosening of containment rather than a spilling of judgment, a signal rather than an end. The ocean has long symbolized stability, depth, and separation, holding back forces beyond human control. When even the sea seems capable of allowing fire to exist, if only for a moment, it challenges assumptions that feel fundamental. The question that lingers is not what caused the flames, but what they imply. If one of the most reliable boundaries in nature can bend even briefly, it raises a deeper concern. What limits in which we place the greatest trust may not be as fixed as we believe. And if that holds true, what frontier might weaken next? As isolated boundaries weakened one by one, the most troubling development emerged when multiple systems began to fail at the same time across several states. Climatic conditions that seldom overlap began to unfold simultaneously. In some regions, floods overwhelmed streets and drainage networks. In others, ice storms coated roads and power lines. Snow fell heavily in areas already struggling with sub-zero temperatures, while dense fog settled over highways and cities, reducing visibility to nearly zero. These events were not sequential. They were concurrent. Transportation networks felt the strain first. Airports suspended operations when runways froze or visibility dropped below safe limits. Highways became impassable, whether submerged by water or blocked by ice. The rail system slowed or halted entirely. What normally functioned as a coordinated national system began to fragment into isolated pockets, each confronting a different hazard at the same moment. Supply chains followed swiftly. Deliveries stalled, fuel shipments delayed. Grocery stores and distribution centers struggled to maintain schedules as transportation routes failed in unpredictable ways. Systems designed to absorb one disruption at a time found themselves forced to manage several at once, and they began to show signs of fatigue. Meteorologists describe these conditions as stalled systems, patterns that no longer advanced cleanly. Cold air remained trapped. Moisture continued feeding storms. Fog persisted without lifting. From a technical perspective, the explanation proved complex, yet measurable from the ground. Yet the experience felt simpler and far more alarming. Residents described feeling hemmed in. Floodwaters blocked one route, ice sealed another, fog erased visibility across the rest. Normal options vanished. Travel turned into a calculation of risks. Daily routines dissolved. The surroundings no longer behaved in familiar, predictable ways. This convergence is what unsettles observers most. Extreme weather is not new. Yet extremes occurring together in layers rather than separately place pressure on systems that depend upon order and synchronization. When those assumptions fail, resilience erodes quickly. In the Gospels, Jesus warned of a period when interruptions would not arrive alone. He spoke of systems failing together, of crises overlapping that exhaust resistance rather than shock all at once. The emphasis fell not upon sudden destruction, but upon sustained pressure. What people confront now is not disaster, but a loss of coordination. When floods, ice, snow, and fog collide, the danger is not only physical, it is structural. Systems that once operated independently begin to interfere with one another. The question that endures is not how severe any single event becomes. It is what happens when nothing functions as it once did, and the time for recovery slips away in silence. What we are witnessing is not chaos without meaning, and it is not fear meant to. The scriptures show consistently that before great changes occur, warnings come first, not as punishment, but as mercy. The Bible makes clear that the Lord does not act without first revealing what is coming to those willing to observe. In the book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 7, it is written that the Lord reveals his plans before they unfold. The warnings are not sudden. They are layered, repeated, and often ignored until they become impossible to dismiss. What makes this moment different is not the presence of problems, but their persistence and alignment. Jesus warned that the last days would resemble the time of Noah, when life appeared normal on the surface. People worked, traveled, planned, and assumed that tomorrow would arrive as expected. Yet the scriptures say they did not recognize the moment until the door closed. The danger was not violence or disaster. It was the lack of preparation. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, believers are reminded that the day will come like a thief in the night. Not because it is hidden, but because people are distracted. Those who remain awake should not live in fear, but in awareness. The call is not to panic, but to stay alert. The Bible also speaks of a time when strength fails not all at once, but gradually. In Isaiah chapter 24, the earth is described as worn down, under pressure, trembling beneath an invisible weight. The imagery is not of sudden destruction, but of slow unraveling. A tension within the system beyond equilibrium. Preparation, according to the scriptures, is not about hoarding or fleeing. It is spiritual alignment. Proverbs chapter 27 verse 12 says, "The wise see danger and seek refuge, while the unprepared continue without discernment." The refuge is not a place. It is a posture. That is why warnings matter. Not to frighten, but to invite reflection. Not to announce the end, but to signal urgency. Revelation chapter 3 speaks of those who seem secure but are not ready. They are urged to awaken before the opportunity passes. The final warning is not shouted. It repeats quietly through signs, seasons, and pressure. The question is no longer whether the world is changing, It is whether hearts are prepared for what comes with that change. This is the moment the scriptures describe as watchful waiting. Not fear, not denial, but preparation. Because when the final moment arrives, the warning will already have been given. Discerning the signs of the times. A call to awareness and preparation. Throughout history, human beings have sought meaning during times of upheaval. When societies face uncertainty, natural disasters increase, and moral boundaries shift, people instinctively ask whether these events point towards something greater. The Bible addresses this instinct, directly urging believers not only to observe what is happening in the world, but to understand it. Jesus Christ emphasized the importance of discernment when he spoke about the signs of the times. His message did not aim to create panic, but to cultivate awareness. Just as people learned to recognize changes in the climate, he taught that spiritual and moral conditions also reveal patterns that must not be ignored. The purpose of warning signals in the physical world is clear. Early alert systems save lives. Sirens, alerts, and forecasts do not exist to frighten people, but to give them time to respond wisely. The scriptures present spiritual warnings in the same manner. The warnings of the Lord are acts of mercy designed to provoke reflection and change before consequences become inevitable. The Bible shows consistently that the Most High reveals patterns before important transitions. These patterns are not hidden only in obscure symbols. They are visible in behavior and attitudes and in the direction of society. Recognizing them requires attention rather than speculation. A fundamental biblical principle is cause and effect. The scriptures teach repeatedly that actions produce consequences both individually and collectively. Obedience to divine guidance leads to stability and blessing, while persistent rejection leads to disorder and loss. This principle finds clear expression in passages such as Deuteronomy chapter 28, where blessings and curses are directly linked to choices. These are not arbitrary punishments, but natural results of alignment or misalignment with the Creator's design. When societies abandon moral restraint, the resulting instability should not surprise. Understanding prophecy, therefore, does not involve predicting dates. It involves recognizing trajectories. The direction in which a culture moves today determines the conditions it will face tomorrow. Jesus compared the final times to the days of Noah, not only because of dramatic disasters, but because of widespread indifference. People continued their daily routines confident in their assumptions, despite clear warnings. The tragedy was not ignorance, but contempt. The account in Genesis describes a world filled with violence and moral corruption. The warning through Noah spanned decades, yet it was ignored because life appeared normal. This pattern holds significance. The scriptures suggest that the greatest danger is not chaos, but complacency. Modern societies face a similar challenge. While systems appear to function, warnings are often dismissed as exaggeration. Yet Jesus warned that this mindset would be common before his return. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus describes several indicators that would characterize the period before the end. These include deception, conflict, scarcity, disease, earthquakes, and increasing lawlessness. It is important to note that he did not present these signs as isolated events, but as overlapping conditions that intensify over time. A particularly notable sign is the erosion of moral boundaries. Lawlessness, as the scriptures describe it, is not simply criminal activity. It is the rejection of divine authority in favor of self-rule. When personal desire replaces objective truth, social cohesion weakens. At the same time, Jesus declared that the message of the kingdom would continue to be proclaimed. This balance between warning and hope is essential. Prophecy concerns not only judgment, but restoration. The Apostle Paul expanded on the conditions of the final time by describing changes in human behavior. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, he listed traits such as selfishness, pride, lack of the experience was different. What proved most striking was the silence. Areas that normally overflowed with noise grew disturbingly quiet. Insects vanished. Birds ceased their songs. Even the wind seemed to halt. The surroundings appeared frozen not only by temperature. The scriptures show consistently that before great changes occur, warnings come first. Not as punishment, but as mercy. The Bible makes clear that the Lord does not act without first revealing what is coming to those willing to observe. In Amos chapter 3, verse 7, it is written that the Lord reveals his plans before they unfold. The warnings are not sudden. They are layered, repeated, and often ignored until they become impossible to dismiss. What makes this moment different is not the presence of problems, but their persistence and alignment. Jesus warned that the last days would resemble the time of Noah, when life appeared normal on the surface. People worked, traveled, planned, and assumed that tomorrow would arrive as expected. Yet the scriptures say they did not recognize the moment until the door closed. The danger was not violence or disaster. It was the lack of preparation. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, believers are reminded that the day will come like a thief in the night. Not because it is hidden, but because people are distracted. Those who remain awake should not live in fear, but in awareness. The call is not to panic, but to stay alert. The Bible also speaks of a time when strength fails not all at once, but gradually. In Isaiah chapter 24, the earth is described as worn down, under pressure, trembling beneath an invisible weight. The imagery is not of sudden destruction, but of slow unraveling. A tension within the system beyond equilibrium. Preparation, according to the scriptures, is not about hoarding or fleeing. It is spiritual alignment. Proverbs chapter 27 verse 12 says, "The wise see danger and seek refuge, while the unprepared continue without discernment." The refuge is not a place. It is a posture. That is why warnings matter. Not to frighten, but to invite reflection. Not to announce the end, but to signal urgency. Revelation chapter 3 speaks of those who seem secure, but are not ready. They are urged to awaken before the opportunity passes. The final warning is not shouted. It repeats quietly through signs, seasons, and pressure. The question is no longer whether the world is changing. It is whether hearts are prepared for what comes with that change. This is the moment the scriptures describe as watchful waiting. Not fear, not denial, but preparation. Because when the final moment arrives, the warning will already have been given. Discerning the signs of the times. A call to awareness and preparation. Throughout history, human beings have sought meaning during times of upheaval. When societies face uncertainty, natural disasters increase, and moral boundaries shift, people instinctively ask whether these events point toward something greater. The Bible addresses this instinct, directly urging believers not only to observe what is happening in the world, but to understand it. Jesus Christ emphasized the importance of discernment when he spoke about the signs of the times. His message did not aim to create panic, but to cultivate awareness. Just as people learn to recognize changes in the climate, he taught that spiritual and moral conditions also reveal patterns that must not be ignored. The purpose of warning signals in the physical world is clear. Early alert systems save lives. Sirens, alerts, and forecasts do not exist to frighten people, but to give them time to respond wisely. The scriptures present spiritual warnings in the same manner. The warnings of the Lord are acts of mercy designed to provoke reflection and change before consequences become inevitable. The Bible shows consistently that the Most High reveals patterns before important transitions. These patterns are not hidden only in obscure symbols. They are visible in behavior and attitudes and in the direction of society. Recognizing them requires attention rather than speculation. A fundamental biblical principle is cause and effect. The scriptures teach repeatedly that actions produce consequences both individually and collectively. Obedience to divine guidance leads to stability and blessing, while persistent rejection leads to disorder and loss. This principle finds clear expression in passages such as Deuteronomy chapter 28, where blessings and curses are directly linked to choices. These are not arbitrary punishments, but natural results of alignment or misalignment with the Creator's design. When societies abandon moral restraint, the resulting instability should not surprise. Understanding prophecy, therefore, does not involve predicting dates. It involves recognizing trajectories. The direction in which a culture moves today determines the conditions it will face tomorrow. Jesus compared the final times to the days of Noah, not only because of dramatic disasters, but because of widespread indifference. People continued their daily routines confident in their assumptions, despite clear warnings. The tragedy was not ignorance, but contempt. The account in Genesis describes a world filled with violence and moral corruption. The warning through Noah spanned decades, yet it was ignored because life appeared normal. This pattern holds significance. The scriptures suggest that the greatest danger is not chaos, but complacency. Modern societies face a similar challenge. While systems appear to function, warnings are often dismissed as exaggeration. Yet Jesus warned that this mindset would be common before his return. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus describes several indicators that would characterize the period before the end. These include deception, conflict, scarcity, disease, earthquakes, and increasing lawlessness. It is important to note that he did not present these signs as isolated events, but as overlapping conditions that intensify over time. A particularly notable sign is the erosion of moral boundaries. Lawlessness, as the scriptures describe it, is not simply criminal activity. It is the rejection of divine authority in favor of self-rule. When personal desire replaces objective truth, social cohesion weakens. At the same time, Jesus declared that the message of the kingdom would continue to be proclaimed. This balance between warning and hope is essential. Prophecy concerns not only judgment, but restoration. The Apostle Paul expanded on the conditions of the final time by describing changes in human behavior. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, he listed traits such as selfishness, pride, lack of self-control, and contempt for what is good. These characteristics prove striking because they reflect internal collapse rather than external catastrophe. A society shaped by these attitudes grows fragile. Relationships suffer. Trust erodes. Institutions weaken. These are not sudden developments, but gradual ones often normalized over time. Paul's warning serves as a mirror, encouraging self-examination rather than judgment of others. Jesus concluded his warnings with a clear instruction: watch and pray. To watch means remaining spiritually alert, not obsessing over headlines. To pray means maintaining a relationship with the Most High that allows correction, guidance, and strength. Spiritual preparation is not achieved through fear, but through humility and repentance. The scriptures emphasize personal change over speculation. The goal is not to escape difficulty, but to remain faithful regardless of circumstances. Preparation, according to the Bible, begins internally. It involves aligning values, strengthening character, and cultivating discernment. External preparation without internal transformation remains incomplete. Although the Bible speaks clearly about difficult times, it never ends in despair. The return of Jesus Christ presents itself as the ultimate restoration, not destruction. The purpose of prophecy is to direct attention toward that hope. Understanding the signs of the times must lead to clarity, not confusion. It must motivate a reflective life, ethical consistency, and spiritual growth. The Bible does not ask believers to predict the future, but to live responsibly in the present. Every generation faces the question of how it will respond to the warning signs. Discernment requires patient study and humility. It also requires resisting both denial and panic. The signs of the times are not meant to overwhelm, but to awaken. They remind us that choices matter, truth exists, and preparation is wise. The real question is not whether the signs are present, but whether we are willing to respond to them. In an era of noise and distraction, discernment grows ever more valuable. Those who take the time to understand, reflect, and prepare will not be caught by surprise, not because they know everything that will happen, but because they have learned to watch, to pray, and to live with purpose. In a matter of minutes, the landscape transformed into something unrecognizable. The sky darkened as if night had fallen early. Not because of clouds or snow, but because the air itself had grown dense with suspended sand and soil. Visibility dropped to nearly zero. Roads vanished, horizons disappeared. What should have been open farmland became a suffocating wall of particles. This was no ordinary dust event. The scale proved overwhelming. Towering waves of sand-laden air rolled across multiple states, engulfing towns, highways, and fields in silence and asphyxiation. Fine particles filled the atmosphere so densely that breathing became difficult, even indoors. Air filtration systems failed. Engines stalled. Machinery designed for harsh conditions became clogged and shut down. Homes that were tightly sealed offered no salvation. Sand forced its way through vent seams and filters, coating everything it touched. One of the most disturbing sights came from the sky. Birds, creatures built for endurance and flight, were seen falling midair, unable to breathe. Their respiratory systems, far more sensitive than those of humans, could not process the dense abrasive air. Later fields were found scattered with lifeless bodies, a silent testimony that the environment itself had turned hostile. When even the air becomes dangerous, survival is no longer guaranteed. The event immediately evoked comparisons with the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, one of the darkest environmental chapters in American history. Then, as now, the Earth had been pushed beyond its natural limits. Overcultivation, soil depletion, and long-term misuse stripped the ground of its protective layers. When drought and wind arrived, the land had nothing left to anchor it. What followed was collapse not only of the soil, but of livelihoods, communities, and stability. The scriptures once warned of moments like this, when the soil itself becomes witness. The earth dries and withers. The land lies polluted beneath its inhabitants. Isaiah 24:5. The parallel proves impossible to ignore. Nearly a century later, despite modern technology, forecasting systems, and environmental awareness, the Midwest found itself reliving a familiar nightmare. This raises a difficult question. If history issued a warning once, why do we face it again? The sandstorm suggests the lesson was not resolved, only delayed. Experts may frame the event through climatic patterns, drought cycles, and failures in land management. Those explanations matter, yet they do not cancel the deeper implication. The soil is not merely dirt. It is the foundation of food supply, economic security, and national stability. When the ground itself begins to fail, everything built upon it lies exposed. Collapse does not always arrive with earthquakes or explosions. Sometimes it comes silently, transported by the wind, grain by grain. There is something profoundly unsettling about darkness at midday. It interrupts the human sense of order. Day is meant for clarity and movement, night for rest. When those boundaries blur, confusion follows. This dust storm did more than block sunlight. It signaled a loss of balance, a warning that natural limits have been crossed. If the Midwest dust storm showed soil collapsing from above, what followed revealed something even more alarming: the ground collapsing from below. Without thunder, without shaking, without warning, vast stretches of the nation began to sink. California and Florida, two states separated by thousands of kilometers, experienced sudden sinkholes and widespread ground subsidence almost simultaneously. No storms passed. No earthquakes registered. Yet the ground collapsed. Streets cracked within seconds. Residential areas were evacuated as the earth beneath homes sank and vanished. Roads deformed. Pipes cracked. Power lines broke. In some areas, the ground did not collapse all at once. It sank slowly, little by little, as though the earth itself had grown weary of bearing the weight placed upon it. The destruction did not roar. It whispered. It was precisely that silence that made it so terrifying. Residents described the sensation as utterly alien. There were no jolts, no violent movement. Yet everything had changed. People spoke of a silent earthquake. A moment when reality changed without sound. 1 second the ground was solid and reliable. The next, it had vanished. What they had always believed, the very surface beneath their feet, had proven unreliable. Scientists pointed to underground erosion dissolving limestone cavities and long-term pressure hidden beneath the surface. Patient, invisible water had slowly eroded the soil for years. The voids widened. The support pillars thinned. Finally, collapse became inevitable. Technically, the explanation was clear. Yet from a human perspective, the timing and extent of this were anything but normal. What makes these events more than isolated incidents is their pattern. These collapses are not rare dramatic disasters occurring decades apart. They appear repeatedly and silently across multiple areas during a short period. There is no single cause, no decisive moment, only failure after failure occurring without fanfare. The silence becomes the message. This reflects a warning long inscribed in the Bible. Jesus spoke of foundations that appear solid on the surface, but are damaged within. A house built upon sand may stand for a time, especially in calm weather. Yet when the final pressure arrives, the collapse will be sudden and complete. The failure is not caused by the storm. It is the storm that reveals it. Whoever hears these words and does not act is like a man who builds his house upon sand. Matthew 7:26. The lesson here proves unsettling. Stability can be an illusion. Strength may be assumed without verification. Foundations, whether material or moral, can erode slowly while life above continues as normal. Collapse rarely gives early warning. It waits until everything seems stable, then crumbles. As the earth sank beneath American cities, the question shifted. It was no longer merely geology. It became a matter of trust. If the surface can collapse without shaking, what else can we assume is safe when it is hollow beneath? What emerges next does not come from the land, but from the deep ocean floor. Without warning, the animals began to run across vast stretches of territory. Millions of cattle and wild animals suddenly moved in the same direction as though responding to a signal humans could not hear. Livestock broke from their grazing patterns. Herds ignored food and water. Wild animals abandoned familiar territories. There was no gradual change, no seasonal explanation, no visible threat driving them forward. The movement was urgent, frantic, and relentless, day and night, without pause. What makes this phenomenon disturbing is not a single sighting, but its scale and coordination. These migrations were not limited to one region, nor triggered by a localized disaster. Reports emerged across wide areas describing similar behavior almost simultaneously. Animals that normally follow predictable routes and rhythms behaved as though survival itself demanded immediate escape. Instinct overrode habit. Scientists have long acknowledged that animals can detect environmental changes beyond human perception. Shifts in electromagnetic fields, subtle ground vibrations, chemical changes in the air, or pressure variations can register in animal senses long before instruments detect them. Yet even with these considerations, no clear explanation accounts for the timing, the magnitude, and the direction of this movement. There was no earthquake, no approaching storm system, no obvious catalyst powerful enough to trigger such unified flight. History offers unsettling parallels. Before major earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions, animals have shown abnormal behavior, restlessness, mass movement, and refusal to settle. In 2011, before the devastating earthquake and tsunami in Japan, similar reports emerged of animals fleeing coastal and inland areas. These patterns are often dismissed in retrospect as anecdotal. Yet they repeat with uncomfortable consistency before large-scale disruption. What intensifies the unease is the animal's apparent disregard for basic survival routines. Many did not stop to feed or rest. This was not migration in the natural sense. It was evacuation. Movement driven not by opportunity, but by avoidance. Whatever triggered it seemed urgent enough to override hunger, exhaustion, and familiarity. From a biblical perspective, this behavior carries symbolic weight. The scriptures repeatedly portray animals as part of creation that instinctively responds to approaching judgment or imbalance. They are not burdened by rationalization or denial. They react. Even the beasts of the field cry out. Joel 1:20. In this view, animals become involuntary messengers, revealing danger through movement rather than words. The unsettling implication is not that animals possess foresight, but that humans often possess denial. People trust data confirmation and visible proof. Animals respond to perception. When creation itself begins to move, as though fleeing something invisible, it challenges the assumption that what humans cannot detect does not exist. The deeper question proves inescapable. If creatures without language, ideology, or explanation are acting with such urgency, what are they perceiving beneath the surface of the world? And if they are already running, are humans remaining still simply because they still cannot see what is coming? If the animals on land fled as though danger approached unseen, the next sign did not move at all. It simply appeared silently and unmistakably above the nation. Over Ohio, as afternoon settled and the skies remained calm, witnesses reported a light in the heavens forming the clear shape of a cross. There were no storm systems on radar, no lightning, no flight paths, no drones, nothing to explain it. Before it was fully seen, the light did not flicker or waver. It did not rotate or descend. It held its form suspended in silence, long enough to be recognized, long enough to be remembered. Then with the same calm, it faded. What followed was not chaos nor fear, but quiet. People stopped speaking. Conversations ceased. Some stood frozen, others simply watched. Panic never arrived. Silence did. That reaction matters. When something truly disturbing occurs, fear usually comes first. Yet this moment carried weight without force. There was no attached command, no spoken warning, no given instruction. The sign demanded nothing, and that made it harder to dismiss. It did not force belief. It invited reflection. In the scriptures, signs in the heavens are rarely theatrical in themselves. Their purpose is not to terrify, but to arrest attention. They interrupt routine, slow people down long enough to consider what they normally overlook. There will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, said Jesus, not as spectacles of destruction, but as markers that something significant is unfolding. Luke 21:25. A sign does not explain itself. It points. The symbol itself cannot be separated from its meaning. The cross is not a symbol of collapse or annihilation. Biblically, it appears before judgment, not after. It represents mercy extended before consequence, an invitation offered while time remains. That is what makes the moment unsettling. Why now? Why without noise? Why without fear? The gentleness of the event is precisely what makes it dangerous to ignore. Noisy disasters force attention. Silent signs test discernment. The scriptures show repeatedly that the clearest warnings are often the easiest to dismiss. They arrive without coercion, without spectacle, without urgency. accept the urgency we are meant to recognize ourselves. In the context of what is already unfolding, trees that had endured for generations stood as living proof that some things last. Long before highways were built and cities sprawled, these ancient giants had already taken root. They survived droughts, storms, fires, and centuries of change. Yet in a matter of days, entire lines of them failed almost at once. Not gradually, not season after season. They died together as though answering a single, invisible blow. What makes this event so disturbing is not simply the loss of old trees, but the absence of any obvious cause. No wildfire raced across the region. No visible infestation spread from trunk to trunk. No prolonged decline marked by yellowing leaves or weakening branches. These trees did not fade. They collapsed. The root systems that had anchored life for hundreds of years failed within roughly 48 hours. What had endured through centuries yielded almost overnight. Trees are more than part of the landscape. They stand as symbols of stability, continuity, and blessing in many cultures, and especially in biblical imagery. They represent life rooted deeply enough to withstand pressure. A healthy tree implies nourishment, purpose, and resilience. Because of this, their sudden collective death carries meaning far beyond environmental concern. It challenges the assumption that age itself guarantees safety. The scriptures constantly warn against equating longevity with security. Trees in biblical language are not measured by how long they stand, but by what they produce. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down, said Jesus. Matthew 7:19. The emphasis rests not on endurance, but on condition. A tree may appear strong outside while failing slowly inside. When collapse comes, it reveals what time alone had hidden. The speed of this event intensifies its impact. Environmental stress is often discussed in long timelines, decades, even centuries. Here, time compressed. What should have unfolded gradually arrived in days. This compression reflects a broader pattern now emerging across multiple systems. Processes that once took generations are accelerating. Stability that once seemed permanent is proving fragile. There is also something profoundly unsettling in the failure of the roots. Leaves may regrow, branches may be pruned. Yet when the root system yields, recovery becomes impossible. Roots remain hidden. They fail out of sight. By the time collapse becomes visible above ground and the damage is already complete, this is not how people expect things to end. And perhaps that is the point. The death of these ancient trees forces a difficult reconsideration. What else do we trust simply because it has always been there? What institutions, systems, or beliefs do we assume are immune to failure because they have survived earlier storms? History shows that endurance alone does not guarantee permanence. Sometimes it only delays exposure. The loss of ancient trees is not merely an ecological tragedy. It is a reminder that stability must be sustained, not assumed. When what endured for centuries falls in days, it signals that something deeper has changed. The ground has shifted not only physically, but symbolically. The question lingers without needing to be spoken aloud. If even the oldest and most deeply rooted can collapse without warning, what else do we believe will last, simply because it always has, until the moment it does not? While the surface of the nation showed signs of strain and collapse, something else began unfolding silently beneath the earth in Texas. Workers uncovered a buried stone slab, far deeper than ordinary construction layers. An object placed intentionally, deliberately sealed, and forgotten by time. Carved into its surface were symbols arranged with order and precision, suggesting purpose rather than decoration. This was no rubble. It was a message left to endure. What unsettled researchers was not the discovery itself, but the lack of clarity that followed. The symbols did not align perfectly with any known modern tool or recent activity. Their structure implied planning method and preservation. Some analysts suggested a possible ancient origin. Others could not confidently assign it to any documented local culture. Every attempt to categorize the stone only deepened the uncertainty. No single explanation resolved the unease surrounding it. The timing made the discovery impossible to ignore. The stone did not emerge during a period of calm or stability. It surfaced amid ground collapses, mass animal movement, strange signals in the sky, and growing national fracture. In moments like this, coincidence begins to lose credibility. The question shifts from what was found to why now. Throughout the scriptures, things buried do not remain hidden indefinitely. Revelation follows its appointed time, not human curiosity. For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought into the light, said Jesus. Luke 8:17. The emphasis rests not on human discovery, but on designated moments. Moments when what was once sealed may rise. The stone offered no translation, no instruction, no clear warning. It arrived without explanation, forcing reflection rather than resolution. That silence is significant. When meaning is withheld, attention sharpens. People begin asking different questions. Not only what does it say, but why was it hidden at all? And why has the earth chosen now to return it? History shows that societies often uncover remnants of past civilizations during periods of transition. Ruins emerge. Forgotten records surface when stability fractures. These moments act as mirrors, reminding the present that others once stood where we stand now, confident, advanced, and certain of continuity. Their remains serve as silent warnings that no era is immune to decline.